He said no. He begged. He cried. And then they hanged him. This isn't about cotton fields or broken backs. It's about broken souls. This is the story they erased because it was too ugly, too damning, even for history. This is the truth of what was done to enslaved black men. Not just beaten, not just chained, but hunted, violated, blackmailed. And if they resisted, they were erased. Take Anthony, 1850s Virginia. His mistress demanded his presence after he refused to touch her when ordered. She screamed, claimed he tried to violate her virtue. By morning, Anthony's body was found mutilated, his genitals cut off as a warning to others. They didn't just murder him, they erased the proof of their own crimes. We often talk about the whips, the chains, the beatings. But what if I told you there were scars you couldn't see? Wounds not on their backs, but carved into their dignity, into their manhood, into the silences they were forced to swallow. Black male slaves were seen as tools, as labor, as muscle. But to some, they were prey. The plantation wasn't just a site of forced labor. It was a stage of power, perversion, and unspeakable abuse. And they didn't just want the land. They wanted full control of bodies. There was something dangerous about desire in the antebellum South, especially when it flowed the wrong way. Power twisted love into control, twisted lust into life sentences. They say black men were brutes, uncontrollable, animalistic. But what they rarely say is this: sometimes the danger wasn't the man. It was the one who wanted him. Historian Thomas Foster uncovered one case in Virginia that should make your blood run cold. 1813. David, an enslaved man, accused of rape by a woman named Dolly Getz. But this wasn't some shadowy midnight assault. No. Neighbors came forward. Even Dolly's own family testified otherwise. Improper intimacy for 3 years. Petition to the governor of Virginia. A petition was submitted in David's defense. It included testimonies from neighbors, and even from Dolly's own father, stating that the relationship had been ongoing and consensual, not rape. Dolly had loved David, or at least whatever twisted love could look like under the roof of slavery. Her father confessed she would bed with him while he was still shackled in their home. She admitted that David's improper conduct arose from her persuasions. She begged him over and over to run away with her. And David? He said no. He denied her ownership of his soul. He refused to flee. So, she screamed, despite the petition, despite the voices who defended him, despite the truth. David was convicted because she was white and he was a slave. That was the only evidence they needed. The Devil in Silk, Marie Delphine. LaLaurie and the Goddesses of Suffering. Her name was Marie Delphine LaLaurie. To the elite of 1800s Louisiana, she was Grace in pearls, a socialite, a hostess. But to the enslaved black men shackled in her cellar, she was hell in human skin. LaLaurie didn't just own slaves, she devoured them. She hunted their spirits, humiliated their manhood. And when their bodies broke, she smiled. She would bind black men to iron frames, stripped naked, then set them on fire. Not quick, not merciful, slow. She watched as flames licked their skin like serpents, peeling back flesh inch by inch. She called it discipline. But this was never about punishment. It was pleasure. Her cruelty was eroticized, calculated, artful. She would pour boiling water on their wounds, break bones and reset them wrong. Some she locked in cages barely fit for dogs. Others, she stitched their mouths shut because the sound of their pain offended her. And when their screams died, she replaced them with new ones. They say evil is faceless, but hers wore rouge, perfume, and a powdered wig. And she was not alone. These weren't fragile flowers. These were tyrants wrapped in corsets. They orchestrated agony like composers, violating black men behind closed doors, then accusing them of rape when their toys stopped obeying. They didn't need whips, they had lies, and a society eager to believe them. Within their parlors, black men were forced into obedience and intimacy. What they called breeding was legalized rape, a twisted game of profit and humiliation. And when a child was born, light-skinned, wide-eyed, they called it mulatto, a word that sanitized horror, erased rape behind syllables of science and ownership. These children, half black, half white, were proof of exploitation, of forced fatherhood, of shattered mothers and branded babies. They were sold like secrets, as if splitting bloodlines would erase the truth. Slavery didn't just steal labor, it fractured identity, left bloodlines warped, and turned human lives into breeding stock. LaLaurie and women like her weren't monsters in myths. They were real, living, breathing, smiling. And when they died, they left behind legacy, not of lace and roses, but of bone, ash, and the kind of pain that echoes for generations. She may be dead, but the screams never stopped. The forced breeders. Some enslaved men were used as studs, forced to breed with women like animals. No consent, no choice, no humanity. It wasn't sex, it was economic rape, and every scream behind closed doors turned into a dollar sign. Lies, lust, and lynching. How many were hanged for desire they never had? How many were murdered because someone else couldn't live with their guilt? They could look at a black man too long, accuse him of thinking the wrong thought, and that was all it took. She could scream rape, even if he'd never touched her, and the world would believe her, because her skin was porcelain, and his was the color of guilt. Stripped. Manhood. What does it do to a man? To know he owns nothing, not even the right to refuse? To know that his body isn't his? That even his silence can be used as a weapon against him? They took more than freedom. They took manhood, dignity, voice, not just with chains, but with silence. The legacy of shame. Douglas wrote, "The slave woman is at the mercy of the master's passions. His pleasure is her torture." But they rarely spoke of the slave men, because their story was somehow more threatening. We don't talk about this, because it's uncomfortable, because it breaks the narrative. But hiding it doesn't erase it. These men were not monsters. They were not myths. They were men. Men who were abused. Men who were raped. Men who were erased from the page unless it was to accuse or to silence. And when they did speak, their stories were buried, their names forgotten, their suffering dismissed. Remember Anthony? All he did was say no, and for that, he was mutilated, not just killed, destroyed. His body used as a lesson, a warning. But the warning was never for the white women, it was for the men like him. Don't forget who owns you, not just your labor, but your flesh. The silent graveyard. How many Anthonys? How many Davids? How many voices went unheard? We walk over their bones. We build schools and homes and dreams on the dirt that drank their blood. And still, we rarely speak their names, but we remember now, and in remembering, we restore their voice. Let them not be forgotten, not anymore. To the men whose stories were stolen, whose bodies were broken, whose manhood was buried beneath centuries of silence, we hear you now. Thank you for watching The Horror They Hid. Black male slaves and the hidden terror they faced. The brutal realities these men endured are a stark reminder of the resilience and strength forged in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Let's honor their stories by keeping history's truths alive. If this moved you, hit that subscribe button, share this video, and join us for more untold stories from the past. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and never stop seeking the truth. History was wild, man. We've got the receipts, people, and oh yeah, the past must be crazy.